You know, I've been really into movies in 2021, if you couldn't somehow tell. I have 6 movie-related videos up on this channel so far. I've watched like 200 movies this year, according to my Letterboxd. I'd consider this channel to be, slightly leaning towards movie-related videos instead of whatever the hell I used to do. Really, nothing. But you know what? I'm not a film review channel yet because of one important thing I've missed. I've not made the customary ranking the MCU movies video. Hey guys, before we get into the video, I just want to let you know that for 200 subs, I'm going to be doing a Q&A on the channel. If you have any, questions that you want answered by me, leave them down in the comments. There isn't any limit to how many you can ask. I just want questions, You can also ask them to me over on my Discord server, or I might have another one on my Instagram stories today asking for more questions. Alright, enjoy the video. Every single gosh darn film channel needs to have one of these, So might as well present my own. I mean, I really like the MCU. I can prove it. Here's a little montage of how I can prove it. Here's my gosh dang Logan poster. Over there in the shadows is my Spider-Man noir figure. Here are my 3 Marvel posters. There's Doctor Strange, there's Spider-Man, and there's Captain America. It's not focusing, fuck. Here's my Marvel Comics thing that I hold stuff in. Here are 3 journals of mine, each of which are Marvel related. Plus a little Wolverine pen. Look at that. We have these 2 Marvel mechs. Of course. I have a bunch of books about comic books, plus some comics themselves. Here's a Venom thingy. There's some more books in there. Here's these little Funko shot glasses. Here's a Venomized Doctor Doom Funko Pez dispenser and a Black Panther one. Up there we have the Dark Phoenix 2 mini Funko Pops and Hulk. Oh, and I forgot to mention these. I have a bit of what you might call an issue. Anyways, yeah, let's get into it. Now, just a quick little disclaimer. This isn't how I think these movies rank in, like, how good they are objectively. These are how I view them and which ones are my favorite, just in the ranking. Along with that, I haven't seen a lot of these movies in like a couple of months. I have seen all of them, I think at least 3 times, 2 times. So these should be pretty accurate because I do know these movies. But yeah, number 23 for The Dark World. Yeah, I mean, everybody knows this. This is the worst movie. The characters suck. It's boring. It's forgettable. Just the bottom of the worst of everything of the MCU. Number 22, Ant-Man and the Wasp. While this movie does have a bit of an emotional connection to me, it is really filler. And it is boring. It's like just completely unnecessary, and all it does is set up one character's location for Endgame. And really it might have just been able to be tucked away as like an end credit scene to Infinity War, really. Or maybe just like one extra little subplot to Infinity War. It wouldn't have been that difficult. Number 21, Thor. Now this movie, it's better than Ant-Man and the Wasp and Thor 2, but it's not great. The only thing I can really say about it is that I think it's a bit silly and fun how Thor kind of interacts with like everything like he's a child. I think that's just kind of a little goofy, a little silly. Number 20, The Incredible Hulk. Now, not a lot of people have seen this movie or even heard of it. Like, a lot of people are surprised when they find out there is a Hulk movie. And I mean, that's for good reason, that Marvel really wants you to forget it. They switched actors of Hulk right after this movie ended, and the only, character that is still around is Captain Thunderbolt, or whatever the hell his name is. And I think he showed up, a little bit in some of the movies, and he's gonna be, a big character in Black Widow. But generally, nobody really cares about him. I just put it this high, at number 20, because I think it's a little goofy, it's a little silly. I like my Marvel movies to be ridiculous, and I think there's some fun stuff in there, like how the CGI on both Hulk and Abomination is horrible and really sucks, or Stanley's cameo where he, drinks a soda and dies. That's probably one of his, not because of that, but it is one of his better cameos. Overall, I mean, you don't really have to watch it. It's not on any streaming service. You can only really get it by renting it on Amazon. So, if you want to see it, I guess go ahead, but it's not really worth it. Number 19, Ant-Man 1. This movie is the definition of lukewarm. It's like what people are really referring to when they say like, oh, MCU movies are boring. I think really the only notable parts of it are, 1, it's kind of cool that it's a bit of a spy movie. 2, Yellow Jacket is a goddamn super boring villain. Nobody cares about him. And 3, the fight at the end in Cassie's room is actually kind of cool and interesting. Number 18, Avengers Age of Ultron. The only accolades I can really give this movie are, 1, the framing of some shots and how they're kind of set up to look like superhero, like comic full panel shots. I think that's kind of cool. And 2, this movie introduced Scarlet Witch, even though they did it in a bad way. They did introduce her, and I mean, that's kind of cool. But you can't really say anything positive about the Joss Whedon anymore, so ignore everything I said about this movie positively. Number 17, Iron Man 3. Now, we're actually starting to get into the movies I would say I like. Objectively, Iron Man 3 isn't that great of a movie and probably should be lower down on the list, but you know what? I think it's neat. Hey guys, it's the worst version of me that edits these videos. I just want to say that while editing this video, I had to, get the poster for Iron Man 3, and the poster looks so sick. Like, actually though, I've never noticed how epic just look at... That's so sick. Seriously. I think there's like a lot to examine here. I think the villains of this movie, like the fire people, they really suck. But I think the kid, he's cool. And I like how Tony feels much more human in this one than he did in the previous 2 movies. Obviously, he gets a lot more characterization later on, but I think this is definitely the best movie examining... The movie in Iron Man's trilogy that kind of examines Iron Man, Also, here's some food for thought. Is Iron Man 3 a Christmas movie? Let me know in the comments. By the time I upload this, it'll be a bunch of days after I finished, recording the video. So if someone reminds me in the comments, I will comment whether or not I think Iron Man 3 is a Christmas movie and pin that comment. And then you can all debate me. Debate me. Number 16, Captain Marvel. I do think that there are a lot of good qualities about Captain Marvel, and also a lot of bad ones. For one thing, this movie feels forced. It only feels like it's, trying to just get Captain Marvel in so we can have her in Endgame. And while I do think some of the actual movie is cool, a lot of it is kind of boring. I think the villains and Nick Fury are the best parts. And Captain Marvel... she's just kind of fine, But I think it's cool that we got, some characterization on Nick Fury. And Goose is an objectively great character, and you cannot tell me otherwise. Goose is one of the... Martin Scorsese can't even create a character that's as good as Goose. Also, this movie is a big old feminist power anthem. It's inspired millions of young girls, and who am I to diss on that, Number 15, Iron Man 2. Before you yell at me... let me explain. Before Disney Plus came out in September of 2019, right? Somewhere around there. A couple of months before that, I wanted to binge all the MCU movies. So I had to rent them out each on Amazon individually. I had to ask my dad for each one, and it would be maybe a couple of days between each movie, just because he wouldn't always say yes. But Iron Man 2 was the only movie that was included with Amazon Prime, and we had a subscription to that. So I watched Iron Man 2 like 6 times. And it's, it's nostalgic to me already. That's why. Number 14, Doctor Strange. Now, despite the movie poster being here on my wall, I'm not actually the biggest fan of Doctor Strange. I once went to this poster shop with my sister in my town, and the Spider-Verse poster I did pay for, but then the Doctor Strange poster, they just kind of had, free in this basket of, I guess, posters they couldn't sell, so they were just giving them away. So I grabbed it, Anyways, the movie is alright. The villains suck. Doctor Strange is cool. Wong is pretty cool. And the CGI stuff they do, some of the stuff is actually pretty cool. And I do like, that the movie ends with Doctor Strange's outsmarting the bad guy instead of just fighting him off, because the MCU, it's really has a lot to do in realizing brawn ain't everything. Now, I think it's kind of cool that they stuck to how Doctor Strange is and let him defeat Dormammu with his brains instead of just kind of beating him up, Number 13, Black Panther. Now, Black Panther definitely has some issues, but it is, really fun to watch, and Killmonger is one of the best villains of the MCU, and Chadwick Boseman is really good in it. So yeah, number 13. I think they could have chilled on the CGI a bit, and some of the scenes are, really unnecessary and boring. But it's not that bad. I think it's alright. Number 12, Iron Man. Honestly, this movie is pretty good. It's a good foundation movie. It has solid humor, it has good characterization on Iron Man and all the other characters. It's a good first step. I think it was very important for the MCU to kind of nail that first step, or otherwise MCU might have been a bit of a flop. It's definitely the second best Phase 1 MCU movie, but I do have 2 other Phase 1 MCU movies higher up on this list. Also, it's kind of difficult to watch any Iron Man movie now, because it's really difficult to take Gwyneth Paltrow seriously at all with all the stuff she's done. Number 11, Avengers 1. Honestly, who doesn't love the, first Avengers movie? This is the good Joss Whedon stuff. Avengers Ultron is the bad spectrum of him, and this is the good spectrum. This is a fun action movie. The characters are interesting enough. The action moves quickly. You're never really bored. You're always just having fun watching this movie. The final battle is iconic, and it gave us the first sneak glimpse at Thanos, which is rad. Without this movie, we wouldn't really ever have any team-up superhero movies, which, if you look at it from a certain lens, it could be the best or the worst movie ever for just existing. There's somebody playing music outside, so that's fun. Number 10, Civil War. Now, Civil War is really ugly in how it looks like, and it is kind of boring. But, it was one of the earliest MCU movies I watched, and it introduced Spidey, which is cool. You can't really judge me for liking it. It's fun. Spider-Man Far From Home. This movie is just so much fun. It's Petey traveling Europe, doing all this fun stuff, fighting Mysterio. There's a lot of good Peter Parker stuff. And I think the kind of mindfuck scene they do, where Peter is being going through this weird hellscape made by Mysterio. I think that scene is really, really cool. Number 8, Guardians of the Galaxy 2. It's Guardians of the Galaxy, come on. It's one of the most visually appealing MCU movies. Yondu's funeral is a really good scene, and it's great character development. Ego is a pretty forgettable character, in my opinion, but that one meme of him being shot by Peter, I think that meme is pretty funny. Fun fact, this is actually one of the first MCU movies that I ever watched, so let me tell you a little story. I never finished it, but it is one of the first MCU movies I ever watched. Basically, I think it was 2017, 2018, maybe. I was at one of my friend's sleepovers, and everybody was like, hey, how about we watch a movie? Let's pull up Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Keep in mind, back then, I was a fucking baby, okay? I would cry at everything. I was, literally the most scared person ever. I was just a little weasel. So one of my friends suggested, hey, let's pull up Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I wasn't opposed to it. I hadn't ever seen any of these MCU movies. So one of my friends pulled it up, except the movie was about halfway through. As in they had been watching it and stopped and went out of it. And when we came back, it resumed. Except it resumed from that one point in the movie where all of the characters are being sent out of the airlock, and I was goddamn terrified of that, and I told them to turn it off, so I only really saw 20 seconds of Guardians of the Galaxy, but I was like, nope, these MCU movies are not for me if they have stuff like that, because I was kind of really terrified of death in 4th or 5th grade. I don't know why, but it was a big issue for me. But yeah, that's why I didn't see an MCU movie at all for the next 2 years. Number 7, Captain America: The First Avenger. Now this movie isn't great, but I just really like it. I don't know why. It's the story, of a scrawny kid getting muscles and punching Nazis. And who doesn't love punching Nazis? It isn't ever really boring, and I think there are 2 really great scenes in it. One of them being the Steve jumping on a grenade scene, and one of them being Steve waking up in New York. I think those 2 are done really well and are really cool and fun. Plus, it spawned the Agent Carter Marvel TV show, which is probably one of the best MCU TV shows. Don't fight me on that. You know, it might be true. I don't think a lot of people have seen it, but I would recommend it. It is pretty cool. It has Howard Stark. It has some more of real-life Jarvis. Number 6, Spider-Man: Homecoming. Now, this isn't really the best Spider-Man movie, but it is definitely the best movie about Spider-Man, if you get what I mean. Like, as in, it's not the best movie that explores and is the most faithful to the comic Spider-Man, but I think it is one of the, like, best and well-made and least cringy movies about Spider-Man. I don't know, Tom Holland is a good Spider-Man, Vulture is one of the better MCU villains, and Ned probably made like a couple thousand 10-year-olds ask their parents what porn was after his scene. So, what do you know? Number 5, Guardians of the Galaxy. It's colorful, it's bright, it's cheesy, it's just so great. Guardians of the Galaxy has great characters, it has some great action, it has some really iconic scenes, and it has good Marvel humor. Honestly, I'm just glad that this movie walked so Thor Ragnarok could run. Without it, Ragnarok wouldn't have been able to be made. Number 4, Infinity War. God, Infinity War is just such a good movie. It is probably, the hands down best MCU movie, but it isn't my favorite. It was actually the only MCU movie on Netflix for like a couple of months back when I was on my MCU binge, so I kind of got burned out of it. Also, when I first saw it, back when I was 11, I went to see it with my friends in the movie theater, and funny thing is, I was so incredibly, like I said, I was incredibly terrified of death at that age, and I was like all the time afraid that Thanos' snap would just happen in real life, and I just kept replaying how it would happen in my head, and I'm really a dumbass, but yeah, that's literally that was a big concern of mine at that age, which is pretty funny looking back. Back when I was like 9 to 11, I was really terrified of like dystopian apocalypse sort of stuff and just death. I don't know why, but I really was. Number 3, Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Like everyone says, this isn't really a Marvel movie. It's a 70s spy thriller wearing a trench coat that says the Captain America trench coat. I think there's some dumb stuff in it, but all of the Bucky and Steve stuff is really well done, and the action scenes are some of the best action scenes in the MCU. Also, fun fact, maybe like 5-6 years ago, I watched this movie. I watched like the last half of this movie in a hotel room in Las Vegas when we were visiting there, and it might have actually been the first MCU movie I watched, not Guardians of the Galaxy. Number 2, Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok. Obviously, this is the most colorful Marvel movie. It's the Marvel movie with the most soul in it. It's just so much fun, and I know I've said that for a lot of Marvel movies, but that is kind of what I look for in my MCU movies. Plus, it was directed by Taika Waititi, who's a really good director. If you haven't checked out some of his other stuff, especially Jojo Rabbit. It's the first Thor movie that has, it's a lot of fun, and it really doesn't have a great villain, but I think that's fine. I think most of the characters are really well done, and it's just so much fun. It's so goofy, it's so silly, it's so stupid, and if Taika Waititi directs more Marvel movies, I'd be a very happy young man. Now, before we get to number 1 on the list, let's go over some Marvel movies that didn't make it on this list because they're not MCU movies, but I think they are really good Marvel movies. Number 1, Howard the Duck, because it's Howard the Duck. Number 2, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Come on, I actually have a poster of it that I paid for. It's got amazing animation, it's got great voice acting, it's silly and goofy, but then it's also philosophical, and it can really, be enjoyed by anyone. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, along with the next movie coming up are like two of some of my favorite movies ever. And yes, two of some of my favorite movies ever are Marvel movies. So you could say I'm a bit of a loser. Number 3, Logan. God, this movie is just so amazing. It's got amazing acting, great action scenes, stunning visuals, and I mean, God, the ending is just so beautiful. It is like, I think, one of the only movies ever that has just made me burst out crying. Maybe sometimes I'm a little sniffly after a movie, but this is just the first one that's ever made me just drown in my tears. Plus, I have an even bigger poster of it on my wall. Anyways, the final movie on this list isn't as good as Spider-Verse and Logan, but it is for sure my favorite MCU movie. Number 1, Endgame. I mean, honestly, I don't think it's really fair to call Endgame a movie. It's the wrap-up, for the longest movie franchise ever. It isn't perfect. There are a few MCU movies that are better than it, but it's just so dear to my heart. Like cheering when Captain America finally caught Mjolnir, like the whole theater being sad when Tony Stark died at the end. All of these things, those are memories I will cherish forever. It wraps up the first 3 phases of the MCU pretty nicely, and if Marvel had just decided to stop making movies after Endgame, I'd honestly be fine with that. So yeah, that's it. Honestly, these rankings are pretty fluid to me. They could change at any time, but this is the list for now. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, share it with all of your friends, and ding that bell. You can see more of my movie reviews on both Instagram and Letterboxd. Both are at RavenclawBro. I use stories like all the time on Instagram, so if that is something you're interested in, make sure to go check it out. Anyways, thank you for watching. See you later. And I really should get over this addiction, huh? Bye.